Select window screen. Агирим, здравствуйте, вы меня слышите? Уже 3 человека. А нет, у меня 2 почему-то. Окей. Okay, dear students, I'm going to record this session quickly in order to give a final touch point and final overview of the slides, so you really know what is going to happen on your test. So this is a typo, I will cover it by a corrector fluid. This is the first page. When you come, I will distribute you the first page. The exam will have 45 questions. Please plan 1 hour for answering these questions, 1.5 minutes for each question, and 10 minutes to fill in the form here. I will ask you to write the last name, first name, and please circle these things correctly. If you mess them up, will you give other pages? Okay. So all the slides are posted. Am I recording? Yes, I'm recording. All the slides are posted here, and the cases are posted here, and they're also posted on your canvas. So if you go here to the module, you see, for your convenience, I included all these, PowerPoint slides, the examination rules, and the link to this Google dashboard. I removed the study guide from the last semester because it included open questions. In this case, we only have closed questions format, and also it didn't include chapter 6. So instead of writing the study guide again, I'm just going over the slides. I will start with, you can open slide 6 here, or you can go here and click on this link. I will go backwards from the last slide to the first one. Okay. So this is what is going on. Okay. Добавить. Okay. Admit all. Makpal, hello. So I'm just reviewing. Hi, Makpal. I'm reviewing the slides. How are you? Как ваши дела?
Хорошо, у вас как?
Ничего, спасибо. Значит, я начала с запись этой сессии быстренько, чтобы показать, что мы будем делать на экзамене, и быстренько пройдусь по слайдам. Хорошо?
Да, хорошо.
Еще раз я закрыла, по-моему, у нас люди прибывают, это хорошо. Еще раз покажу. Так, закрыла. Давайте. Вот это будет первая страничка вашего теста, 45 вопросов. Пожалуйста, оставьте 10 минут на заполнение вот этой страницы. Желательно заполнить свое имя, потому что это сохраняется в сканере. И закрасить кружочки. Не пожалеет пасты. Вот. Планируйте на 1-1,5 минуты на каждый вопрос. И часа вам должно хватить. Теперь я хотела сделать обзор всех слайдов и показать, на что уделить больше внимания. Потому что у меня есть такие опасения, что вы как бы растечетесь по всему материалу. Я бы хотела final touch point сделать. Так, я начинаю с последнего слайда. Вы можете выйти на вот эту дашборд или можете с Canvas выходить на слайды. И я буду рассказывать, на что обратить внимание, начиная с 6 и заканчивая 1. Теперь я перехожу быстренько на английский. Все-таки у нас язык обучения английский. JetBlue. Обратите внимание на кейс, пожалуйста. И у вас будет 2 или 3 вопроса. Вы должны понимать, что значит, когда компания так называемая stuck in the middle. Кто-то еще добавился, да? Stuck in the middle. You have to understand the concept of being stuck in the middle. So they started as a cost-saving company, but then there are specific structural difficulties. They located in the East Coast, but you can read about this, that prevented them from being able to do both strategies. And what are these both strategies? Differentiation and cost leadership. So their performance started to decline. Please pay attention to this case. If you don't understand it, go to the textbook. Okay? So okay. So in the previous semester, I had questions on the things like, oh, how do you define a business? But this semester I included them because they're based on definitions. In this case, almost all questions will be based on scenarios. So you have a company, what would you do as a strategist, as a decision maker? So you don't have to remember the definitions. You have to understand these things, but I will not ask any specific question about, items like this. It's the same, you have to understand it, but I will not ask you, to draw it or to state it. Imitation is very important to understand why we talk about imitation in strategy. Okay, and if we have, for example, a company like Intel investing with another company in the Netherlands, a lot of money, they'll invest and create new innovation, and someone just immediately copies it. Okay, so someone else can create the same model, the same product or the same service without investing all this money. So all this money is in a way wasted for this company because they cannot capture profit. That's why it's very important for the company that imitation is very difficult. And if it's difficult, it can capture profits from its work, effort, innovation. And this is the word that it describes it. I'm not asking this word in the test, but you have to understand why we are talking about imitation. The relationship between market share and competitive advantage, yes. Sometimes it means, sometimes it's, these two things are related, sometimes they are not. And especially pay attention to this slide. Please try to understand, this concept of the third factor affecting both market share and profits. Okay. Economies of scale. I'm not asking the definition, but in some questions this topic is covered. You have to know what is economies of scale. Okay. So someone else is connecting. Admit. Okay. Then sustainable competitive advantage. Again, it's very difficult to copy or imitate. Why is it difficult? I'm not asking any multiple choice question, what asks you to specify these items, but you have to understand. Okay, when is it difficult for the company to imitate? So they could be applied questions based on these things. Okay, it's difficult to imitate when you don't know what exactly is behind company profitability, right? You cannot imitate if there is path dependence, and you will have question about TSMC and Intel, and we discussed historical conditions, so you will have a question about it. Tacit knowledge, yes. I'm not asking the definition, but you have to understand the concept. Forms of competitive advantage, very fundamental. Again, no definitions, but you have to understand the meaning. Okay. Drivers. I had a question about drivers, but I removed it. Okay. Differentiation, of course, you'd have to know differentiation. So this, I'm not asking, specific questions about these numbers, but you have to understand the principle. What is differentiation? Which is a better differentiator? Which company is better cost leader in this case? So please, just review them quickly. Don't pay too much time here, but you have to understand. Economies of scale tends to show up. You will have a question on learning curve. You have to understand what is learning curve. So this is cumulative output. Pay attention. When we talk about economies of scale, it's the output within a year or month. This is all the items the company has produced. And you learn and your costs decline. You have to understand the concept. There will be no numerical questions like this in the exam. Just you might want to use this in the future, but I'm not asking about it now. This hospital, was it Monday or Wednesday? I forgot. So I discussed it with one group. People already forgot what is this, but I ask you to review this case. It's in the textbook, in the slides. So it's the company hospital that has many surgeries, way cheaper than in the United States or UK, but we have really good survival rates. How does he do it? We discussed it. He uses both economies of scale. He can buy very expensive advanced equipment, but because there are so many surgeries, they save on cost. And they also save on learning. So he applies learning curve to his work. Read the slide, understand it. You will have a question on it. Of course, you have to know what is blue ocean strategy. Look at this. If you don't know, you have to know examples. We covered Trader Joe, yes. It's an example. IKEA. We didn't discuss it in too much detail, but in the past, furniture stores would require, would have salespeople, and they would deliver furniture, and they would assemble it. So all these items would increase costs, and IKEA just removed salespeople, removed after-sales service, reduced warranties, and they became a cost leader. But also there was an interesting thing, because the furniture was so simple and inexpensive and stylish at the same time, they discovered that not only students and young people were interested, even wealthy people didn't mind buying this furniture. So they basically created a new market. So this is an example of blue ocean strategy. It's difficult to implement. You have JetBlue example, you will have questions on it too. Red ocean, I think I didn't include red ocean in this case, but basically it's, the same thing. You stuck in the middle and then you go bankrupt. You will have a question on Cirque du Soleil, definitely. Please understand this case. It's described here and it is described in the book. They started as a differentiator. They removed animal acts and they removed the clown humor. So, and they had these wonderful, beautiful, highly sophisticated shows. But then the company was sold by the owner to a company that cared only about profits, as I understand. So they had to have many performances. So, and if you have many performances as an artist, you get tired, your creativity declines, right? So, there were some bad things happening, people would die. And when the final, blow was the pandemic, and they were almost bankrupt. So it's the situation when the company cannot handle both cost leadership and differentiation. So I checked the interview of the CEO of Cirque du Soleil last December. Maybe I don't know what's going on. But we're still out there. We have to clarify the strategy. So I'm closing this slide. Okay, number 5, competitive advantage. Apple and Microsoft, I think I didn't ask any questions. But the most important slide, I will start from the last thing, I think, and then I will go. The most important slide is here. Okay, so basically in this slide set we covered all these elements. What is accounting, profit, economic, okay, what is stakeholder view, share price, and NPV, and discounted cash flow, survival is at the heart. So, and you will have several questions where I will ask about a certain scenario. For example, your performance is declining and the industry is changing very fast. Can you use accounting profit? And the answer is, of course, no, because economic and accounting profit refer to the things that have happened, and if your industry is changing very fast, these measures are no longer relevant. So I'll go back to the beginning. So you have to understand the advantages and disadvantages of every measure of performance. And this is what we did. So we reviewed Apple and what was Microsoft case, and then we started reviewing each measure. Is growth rate a good measure of company performance? Yes and no. We discussed that to a certain level, and then growing bigger doesn't mean the company is performing well. And then we discussed profits and rate of return, and we discussed limitations of these accounting data, and the main thing is that they do not look at market information, they look at historical information that might be outdated if your industry is changing very fast. So they have this important rear view mirror perspective that might not be relevant. You have to look forward in certain cases, so that's why you have this picture. This explains the declining importance of book value, right? That's why accounting measures are becoming less and less relevant. But can you replace accounting measures by market cap or total return to shareholders? Yes and no, because investors, when they think about companies, they take into consideration company strategy, company profits, and so on and so on. So it's much better than accounting value, but the problem is that main problem is that people can be irrational, so this measure is not very stable. And also the market caps changes together with the economy. So please remember that. Again, this is, I keep repeating these pictures again and again. You have to understand the concept of product differentiation and cost leadership. You will not have specific questions, but there will be questions touching these concepts. So these are measures that are very close to the definition of economic profit. It's much better than accounting profit. It's more objective than market cap, but economic profit has also its own drawbacks. So I will not ask you to calculate this, okay? But the drawback again is that it looks backwards. So with the different groups of measures, you don't have to remember these items. Okay, what's the disadvantage of NPV or discounted cash flow? Again, it's forward looking, but so many things depend on your assumptions. Okay, these are limitations, look at them. Limitations of present value. And then there is another method of identifying company performance. It looks like what pilots seen on the plane. So you have different measures: financial, customer, operations, organizational. This approach also has its problems. It's focused on implementation. Another measurement. So sometimes we're too focused on profits, we forget about people or planet. The ideal situation is here. The drawback, of course, it's very difficult to balance all three. I will not ask this question, but there will be no questions related to the triple bottom line. Okay, and this part is very important. Please be very attentive when you look through. Especially, I think this case, read about this case, the slides. I will have 2 or 3 questions on Threadless. So this is the company created by 2 students. They invested 1,000 and they became one of the most innovative small companies in America in that year. So what they do not design these things. They're designed by the they have a group, a community, and designer community creates these images, and when people vote, and when the best images get printed on t-shirts and sold. So this model is called co-creation, and we don't have consumers, we have producers and consumers in the same groups. That's why it's new word, prosumers. So what is this business model? We're saving on idea generation, design, marketing, and we don't have to pay consulting companies to forecast trends. So everything here works together. It's one of the ways to create profits. So you have to understand how this model works. And then please go over these different business models. You have to understand them, and the questions will be, for example, you have a subscription model and it doesn't work. What is the problem? How would you problem solve it? Or you have to move from wholesale model to subscription. What would you do? Pay as you go. For example, if I call someone and if I pay by minute, this is pay as you go model. If I pay for a month, this becomes a subscription model. So you have to understand these models in order to be able to answer certain questions. The questions will be not based on definition, they will be based on decision making in a certain theoretical scenario. Okay, so I just wanted to emphasize that. And please remember this diagram, this is very important. So I'm closing this. Okay. Вы здесь еще?
Да.
Окей. Как бы вы
Yes, we are.
успеваете, да? Я не слишком быстро говорю.
Успеваем.
Я еще это записываю на OBS Studio и выложу сейчас сразу же после этого на YouTube, хорошо? Я хотела просто расставить акценты правильно, чтобы вы знали, на что обратить внимание и не упустить какой-то важный момент. Окей? Так, это у нас презентация по внутренним ресурсам, internal competencies. I'm not asking a question on this company because not many students are familiar with it. Of course, you have to understand what is core competence, resource and capability. So I'm not asking about Dr. Dre. No, I didn't put any question, I think, about it. But I had the question about, I'll talk about this. So I think one company like this created, I think it was Canon, created prototypes for a personal computer, a monitor, but they didn't benefit, they didn't start producing these products. So the question was why the company was not able to capture profits from their innovation. I think we discussed this in class. It's because the company simply didn't have anyone who would care. They would focus too much on their core business, and they didn't have, people or engineers or marketers who would think of applying the new innovations. So sometimes company can have core competencies, they can produce value, but then do not benefit from this value. Okay, so everything has to work together. You should have capabilities, but you should be also able to benefit from these capabilities. And of course, market position is also important. Okay. So again, I will not ask about definitions. You just have to understand these things. I'm not asking about Google. This is the most important thing in this so far in this slide. RBV means resource based view. It's the same thing that you would study in Introduction to Economics. If we go back to David Ricardo, the history of economic thought, they would say, okay, you have resources, and these resources create value. Basically, this is the idea. For the company to create the value, resources should be unique, and they should be tied to the company, so it's not easy to buy and sell it. So this is described by this word, immobility, or they're sticky. So you have to understand this, and you will have a question about this particular thing. Because resources are different from company to company, and you cannot easily sell them from company to company, it's important that these resources are valuable. And we discussed Intel, for example. Was it Intel? Yes, Intel. So they produce chips, semiconductors for personal computers. And now more and more people use smartphones, right? So they still produce valuable thing, but the market of personal computers is not growing fast. So the value of their ability to produce chips for semiconductors is not growing. Are resources rare? Are they the only company that can produce semiconductors? No. Okay. And it's important that these resources are difficult to imitate. And it's difficult to imitate resources that history dependent. And for TSMC, we watched the video, the founder said it's very difficult to recreate what TSMC did in Taiwan because you cannot turn the clock back. So basically he was talking about path or history dependence. Okay, admit. So please pay attention to these slides, especially this part about resources being valuable. They have to be valuable, they have to be rare. It should be difficult to imitate your resources, and it should be difficult to substitute for them. And then if you have all these conditions, then you have opportunity to create profits or sustained competitive advantage. So this thing is called RIO, valuable, rare, inimitable, organized. And you will have a question about it. So is your resource valuable? Is it rare? Is imitation costly? Are you organized? You definitely will have questions. Not a theoretical one, but applied to a certain company, that one of these companies that we have discussed. Okay, it's this, just go over it in order to understand. What is rare? Resources are scarce, they should be relevant. Okay, so this is the slide about why is it difficult to imitate, because you don't know why this company is profitable. You don't know the reason why it's so profitable, or because they protect their patents, or because sometime in the history they did something and now it's very difficult to catch up. Okay. Dynamic. I'm not asking about this. This is important. Again, no questions to define this or draw this, but you have to understand what is a value chain, right? So it's a sequence of activities, and they create value. For Walmart, it's how they manage supply chain, logistics, distribution. They have their own distribution center, so these things create value. Okay, add metal. So please pay attention again to understand what is value chain. Again, I will not ask about the definition, but you have to understand what is meant by value chain. I think we didn't have time to discuss this in detail. this is a company that is producing cakes, packaged cakes, and it was very famous. It's a cultural phenomenon. Many people love it because they had it when they were kids. It's a very old case. You see the date, 1999, and when they went bankrupt. So what was the reason? And then you can use this value chain concept to understand. So what is value chain? It's a sequence of activities. It's the same diagram here. They pay for ingredients, they pay for packaging, they pay for manufacturing, and this is the critical thing, right? It's a lot. What is this? This is outbound logistics. It turns out that they had their own fleet of cars to deliver cakes. When they went bankrupt, so investors bought it. The first thing they did, they just removed this. Okay, so they changed the recipe to make them, shelf life longer. So they had to save on outbound logistics in order to reduce costs. So this is how you can use value chain analysis in order to be competitive. So these are competitors. This is the case we're discussing. So you see transportation costs are very high. This is the cost leader. So we have like lower quality ingredients, they have poorer packaging, they do not spend much on manufacturing, they do not spend much on transportation, so they're the cost leader. There are other competitors, right? So you can use value chain analysis. I will not ask in this detail, but you have to understand the concept. You will have a question about coherence map, and you did this for Walmart, right? So what is this thing? You have so many things going on, and this is not for Walmart, this is for another company, but you had one for Walmart, and they should reinforce each other. So it's a tightly working mechanism. You can think about watch, mechanical watch, everything works together. So I will ask you about Walmart. Say, okay, what happens if in Walmart value chain we remove or change one of these, core activities? What will happen? So this will be a question about Walmart. So these examples of value chain activities. Okay. So please go back to your coherence map that you created at the second week or first week. It will help you to answer this question. Okay, now we go to slide number 3. External analysis. Okay. Airbnb, you'll have a question about Airbnb. Yes. So I hope you remember this from your previous courses in management. So this is the external environment. So basically this lecture is about all these factors affecting the company and industry. So this is what you usually do in your presentations. This is an explanation. You will have a question about BlackBerry. It was the market leader. They created the market for smartphones. Please read these 2 slides or case in the textbook to understand what happened, why they lost billions, right? And became and for probably you don't even know about BlackBerry unless you followed Kim Kardashian like 10 years ago. So they lacked awareness of changing social cultural factors and changes in technological factors. They were too focused on security, and they didn't believe that people should use devices for personal and work purposes at the same time. So they just missed that trend. Blockbuster, you will have a question. So we discussed this probably because it was long ago when I asked previous group, we don't remember. It was more like a library. So if you would come, you would see they would have stacks of videotapes you would pull out. They were the market leader, and when they went bankrupt, and Netflix, which was a small company when they were big, became profitable. So what did Blockbuster miss? You will have a question. What was the problem? Which trend did they miss? They missed, the advent of network, and that people started using internet for watching videos. So okay. Michael Porter, we use it for our case analysis. I think it's just economies of scale. Yes, you have to understand them. I will not go in detail. In this case, we don't go so deep in these details. So network effects, please look at this slide. You will, I think I had one, I don't remember, I think I had one question about it. Switching costs. Product differentiation, of course, you have to understand it. Yes, you will have a question about supermarkets. Learning curve, you have to understand it. Okay. I think that's it for power suppliers. Yes, you have to know it, especially for your supermarket question. Powerful buyers, yes. Threat of substitutes, yes. Degree of rivalry, yes. Oh, US industry, you have to read these slides and read JetBlue slide. It is very important because I think there are 3 or 4 questions on this. Okay. Now we go to the second presentation. I think I did not include Facebook because we haven't discussed this. So this is about strategy process, right? So you have to understand corporate strategy, but I'm not asking definitions. Customer orientation, this is very important. Please read this slide, and please read this slide. You have to really understand what is conveyed here, or please go to the textbook. So if you focus too much on your product and start focusing on making buttons nice and making it very fast and beautiful, but if you don't think about satisfying the needs of customers, and customers don't really need to own this, they need to type. This is about information transfer, and the typewriter business is not actually typewriter business. People want to use typewriters to put some things on paper and send these papers or save these papers. So it's an information transfer thing, right? So you have to have a broader view. If you focus too much on your product, you might miss the trend, and the trend, these are outdated now. At some point we are typing on our computers, but times change. Now I'm not even typing, sometimes I'm talking to the recorder on my smartphone, and then I have speech to text algorithm typing this for me, right? So it's the same thing. We're conveying information using different devices. So it's very important that you don't get too focused on products, because you might miss technological changes. It's the same here. Please read this quote, that railroads were too focused on the rails, but they forgot that we're not in the business of trains and rails, we're in the business of transportation. Okay. You will have a question about it. This is also very important. There are 3 ways to come up with strategy from top to bottom, and the example is Steve Jobs. So he has because he had this talent, he had a better idea than many other people. So, and he pushed this image on everyone else. It might work for some companies and industries, and it might not work for others. You have to understand when it's appropriate to use this model and when it's not. Scenario planning, the same thing. In some cases it's appropriate, in some cases it's not, and this is the same. You have options. So what is going on here, please look at these cases. So probably this is not going to work in industries that are changing very fast and when you need intensive feedback from customers. So this only works when you have this charismatic leader. Strategy planning, please understand what is it. So some companies use it. It is useful, but it's also sometimes not appropriate because people cannot predict everything. That's why we discussed black swans. And then another type of strategic process is planned emergence, when you just collect information and suddenly you come up with this idea that becomes your strategy. And this is an example, Frappuccino. Okay. I do not ask questions about bounded rationality because we haven't discussed the Fukushima case, I think. Right. So this is left for the second part of our course, I think. Right. So in the last presentation that I wanted to go through is number 1. And we started with Elon Musk. So, this is example when he was not in the politics, when he was a visionary. Okay, you will have 2 or 3 questions about Tesla strategy. And I had questions about Tesla strategy in the first semester, in the past semester. So if you read his blog post and you have a description of Tesla case in the textbook, he had in 2006 a blog post when he described several steps for his company. Step number 1, they create a sports car. Step number 2, they create a more affordable car. Step number 3, they create even more affordable car. And then the final step is provide zero emission electric power. So in the previous semester I asked students to explain these steps, but I don't think I will do this now because it's more about remembering the case. So I will just describe these steps for you, not in detail but in general. Of course it's up to you to remember the details, and then I will ask you the strategic question around these steps. So why do we say it was a good strategy? Why did he come up with these steps? What is the relationship between step number 1 and step number 2? So that's why please pay attention to this case. It's also described in the textbook. Twitter, I didn't discuss Twitter. Okay. Yeah, Tesla is important. Strategic positioning, yes, it's important. Walmart, yes, I will have questions about Walmart. As I mentioned, coherence map. Sustainable competitive advantage, stakeholders, of course you have to know these things. So if you noticed that I pay a lot of attention to company cases, so I will have questions on Walmart, on Visa, 1 or 2 very general questions, to make sure that you understand the problem. So they will mostly build around the main problem of a case. 1 or 2 questions. So what is Visa doing actually, right? What kind of business is this? You have to understand why they're better than anyone else. And what was the problem in this case? The problem was that there are so many fintech companies and they have to somehow decide whether they're going to accommodate these companies or fight them, or I don't know, For Intel, you will have 2 or 3 questions about Intel and TSMC. We paid so much attention to Intel, I think I will just not describe it in more detail. About IDM model and what is going on. For this company, yes, again, what was the main problem here? And Trader Joe, in one of our presentations, I think one student said that we cannot recreate this model in Kazakhstan because of several reasons. So I created a question about supermarket business model in Kazakhstan and one question about Trader Joe. How is it different from Walmart, for example? What is the main feature of their business model? And the main feature, they are in the blue ocean, so they save on costs and they provide differentiated product. How does it work? Because they limit their product choice, right? And work well with suppliers. So they limit product choice, but these products are unique. They save on logistics and so on. So I hope that you remember the case. That's it. Any questions? Вопросы есть у вас? Я вижу Махпал, пицца, Диляра, Нурай, Айгерим. Если у вас нет вопросов, я просто хотела как финальный touchstone, да, финальный чек сделать, что вы ничего не упустили из того, что я хотела спросить. И на этом я закрою тогда и выложу видео.
Спасибо большое. Можно узнать, вот мы же в 6-м слайде не прошли последние, слайды. Они будут в намитке завтра или нет?
6-й?
Да, которые там написаны JCPenney, Cirque du Soleil там и тому подобное.
JCPenney у вас не будет вопроса. Но JetBlue будет. JetBlue будет. И Cirque du Soleil там небольшая маленькая же врезка в учебнике. Это очень интересный кейс. Пожалуйста, посмотрите. Вопрос включен. В принципе, это вопрос, все эти вопросы, JetBlue, у меня вопрос по IKEA, JetBlue, это все вопросы по Blue Ocean.
И еще в модулях был Study Guide, но он пропал. Вы будете его разблокировать или...
Нет, мне кажется, что я вот вместо этого Study Guide сделала вот это вот коротенькое собрание и видео сделаю, потому что мне кажется, что он слишком сфокусирован на открытых вопросах.
Хорошо, тогда, получается, вы это видео сейчас скинете.
Да.
Спасибо.
Извините, вот у меня есть вопрос. Будут ли вопросы насчет symptoms of group sync, там насчет cognitive biases или как?
Нет, я не включила,
Это со второго.
потому что это у нас будет обсуждаться на кейсе Фукушимы. Я его оставлю на второй экзамен.
Ага, все хорошо, спасибо.
Все тогда.
Знаете, у меня есть вопрос.
Ага.
Получается, вы говорите то, что не надо запоминать дефиниции. Но будет ли такое то, что там по такому-то определению, что стоило сделать компании? Будут ли похожие вопросы?
Как так? По какому-то определению?
Ну да, допустим, какой-нибудь, какой-то, не сказать, что термин, но просто вы же говорите, не будет вопросов на definitions. Но будет ли такое, что необходимо будет знать сами definitions, чтобы ответить на вопрос?
Нет, надо будет понимать. Но если вам не знакома
Допустим,
концепция дифференциации, конечно.
Что-то означает вот это.
Вот я думаю, что надо просто понимать и узнавать. Вот, например, я спрашиваю, да, что такое там по концепции в Рио, да, но я буду ее расшифровывать. Valuable, rare, inimitable, organized. Что там, не знаю, в Intel пошло не так? Да? То есть я же не
Ага.
спрашиваю дефиницию, но это будет вопрос на узнавание вот этой концепции, и вы можете потом уже объяснить, вот они, допустим, что-то не так сделали, и выбрать вопрос,
М,
ответ, то есть.
мгм. Окей. А еще вопрос. Словари, я так понимаю, нельзя с собой брать, да?
Словари можно, но,
Можно?
пожалуйста, не цифровые словари, хорошо? У вас есть
Ну да.
бумажные?
Да, да.
Окей, да. И вы
Окей.
также можете спрашивать у меня какие-то
Ага.
слова. Вот.
Хорошо, спасибо.
Пожалуйста. Тогда я отключаюсь, да? Есть еще вопросы? Вот, я вижу Махпал.
Я хотела бы спросить, прошу прощения, сколько у вас открытых и закрытых вопросов будет?
Открытых вопросов вообще нет. Будет 45 закрытых вопросов. Мгм. Каждый вопрос весит 1 поинт. И я решила, что я не буду вас будоражить. Не будет негативных штрафов. А, Наверное, это уже потом будем постепенно вводить. Но будет curving, конечно, потому что у меня 2 секции. Одна секция раньше сдает другую, они не в совсем равном положении. Поэтому, конечно, я буду adjustment делать curve.
А будет curving, который прям радикальный, то есть от 0 до 100 будет распределение оценок, либо просто самая высшая оценка будет считаться как за 100, и уже просто у всех оценки будут подниматься.
Радикальный curving, я вот пробовала его, в Canvas есть встроенная функция, мне кажется, это очень опасная вещь.
Мгм.
Я предыдущие экзамены просто сдвигала вверх, то есть самый лучший студент получает 100 баллов.
Мгм.
И в этот раз я тоже посмотрю, ну, как бы это не, тут нету такого четкого алгоритма. Надо посмотреть, чтобы ничьи права не задеть, получается.
Мгм.
Ну, я хочу сказать, что я так делала, и оно пока срабатывало.
Который именно просто оценки вверх поднимает
Да,
или
да, да.
радикальный? Все,
Радикальный,
поняла.
радикальный для меня слишком радикальный.
Мгм. Окей, спасибо.
Все, да? Тогда я отключаюсь и выкладываю видео в YouTube. Всем спокойной ночи. Завтра,
Спасибо.
если у вас
Да.
тест, не проспите. А если в понедельник, то до понедельника.
Спасибо, до свидания, спокойной ночи.
До свидания.
До свидания.